Safety caution: gloves, foreign particles may penetrate and parts damage due to the drop. Do's and principle for the assembly is no gloves. Also, when performing engine overhaul, assemble the part in clean environment, no glove, and apply correct torque with torque wrench. Clean inside and outside of disassembled cylinder block and blow the air using air gun. Check its function for engine oil spray nozzle, and if malfunction happen, exchange with new parts. If spring and valve have a problem, it will cause serious problem to engine. Torque for the oil spray is 2.1 plus or minus 0.5. Apply correct torque with torque wrench. Check valve tappet, and if condition is similar as above, exchange with new parts. Check contacting surface for any damage. If tappet is normal, measure its diameter. If the measurement is lower than its limits, exchange with new parts. Exchange cylinder block if difference between tappet bore and diameter is over its limits. If no problem, start assembly. Checklist before camshaft assembly. Check camshaft bearing whether it is fitted. Check camshaft wear with dial gauge and micrometer. If it is over the limit, change with new parts. Check camshaft bearing bore with dial gauge and micrometer. If it is over the limit, change with new parts. Use jig when exchange the camshaft bearing. Refer to top right picture. Check oil supply port when assemble the camshaft bearing. Apply oil on the camshaft bearing for better assembly. Assemble camshaft. Assemble crankshaft. Clean crankshaft assemble area. Clean main bearing while checking its condition. If scratch is found, replace with new part. When assemble, check the oil port. Put main bearing with both hands and check whether it come off or shape change. If problem happen, exchange. Assemble the main bearing without crankshaft. Torque for main bearing is 24.1 plus or minus 1 kg/m. Change main bearing if the bearing bore is over 80 mm. After checking, disassemble again. Put crankshaft on the V-block. Install dial gauge on the crankshaft and rotate. If it over the limit, exchange the part. Remove the shaft gear using crankshaft remover. When wear or fault is found, replace with new one. Must use special tool for the assemble. Apply oil on the main bearing before assemble crankshaft. Use crane when assemble the crankshaft bearing. Aware the scratch. Thrust bearing have different shape for front and rear. Must put the notching side at the center. Place the thrust bearing as shown in the video. Place bearing next to the shaft and insert it while rotate to bottom. Must put the thrust bearing notching side at the center. Thrust bearing before assemble. Thrust bearing after assemble. Align thrust bearing on the main bearing cap. And then assemble main bearing. Main bearing cap have arrow sign. Direction for the arrow should be toward to engine front. Apply Loctite 242 on the assemble area before assembling main bearing. Turn the crankshaft with pulley nut. This will help next main bearing cap assemble. Main bearing cap have number on the top. Assemble order is from 1, pulley side. Using torque wrench for assemble. With 24.0 plus or minus 1 kg per meter. After assemble is finished, turn the crankshaft with hands. Remove oil seal wheel housing with urethane hammer. Replace with new oil seal using wheel housing installer. Apply liquid gasket on the cylinder block surface. Assemble flywheel housing. Tentative assemble for the bolt. Use torque wrench for the bolt. Torque is 16.1 plus or minus 1 kg per meter. Assemble flywheel by bolt assemble order. Apply Loctite 243 on the bolt before assemble. Put the flywheel on the shaft first and assemble one bolt. Fix flywheel gear on the starter motor place to applying torque. Assemble bolt with its order. Torque is 22.3 plus or minus 2.2 kg per meter. Turn the block up using crane. Assemble timing gear case. Place timing gear case on the cylinder block. Apply torque 2.6 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter on the bolt. Place idler gear shaft so that oil hole is facing toward camshaft. Make crankshaft number 1 as TDC for easier timing gear assemble. Crankshaft is on BDC position. BDC means bottom dead center, lowest position for the stroke. Rotate more to put crankshaft number 1 on the TDC position. Crankshaft number 1 is on TDC position. TDC means top dead center, highest position for the stroke. Assemble cam gear. Torque for cam gear is 16 plus or minus 1.5 kg per meter. Prepare assemble with applying gear oil on the gear contacting surface. Place idler gear with matching the mark. Check idle gear pinhole and inner hole is aligned or not. If not, use tool to align. Assemble torque 5.5 plus or minus 1 kg per meter on the bolt. Remove bolt to rotate crankshaft. Put dust cover on the crankshaft gear. Tentative assemble for the new front seal on the cover. Must use special tool when assemble or disassemble front oil seal. Assemble with front seal cover. Assemble torque 2.6 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter on the bolt. Put fan pulley on the shaft for the assemble. Place bush between shaft and pulley. Once bush is placed, assemble the bolt. Fix the flywheel again and apply torque with 60.0 plus or minus 5.0 kg per meter. Clean cylinder block liner assemble area. Exchange liner with new part. Apply gear oil on the liner assemble area and bottom of liner. Assemble the liner.
That's good.
Disassemble and checking piston and connecting rod. Remove 3 piston ring using piston ring wrench. From top to bottom. Remove snap ring at the piston pin using snap ring wrench. Rotate the piston and remove piston pin. Apply above method to all 6 piston. Place with new part when it is over the limits. Check multiple time using gap gauge. If over the limits, place piston ring. Don't insert ring with piston. Push ring into the liner in number 1 position and number 2 position. Position 1, 10 mm from the top, position 2, 130 mm from the top. Check cap between piston ring with micrometer. If over limit, exchange. Multiple check for the diameter using micrometer. If over limit, exchange. Check gap between piston pin and hole. If over limit, exchange. If checking is impossible, heat the piston to 60 degree. Apply pin insert. When inert, insert should be tight. Check at wearness condition for both large and small side of connecting rod using connecting rod balancer. If over the limit, exchange. Check connecting rod small end bushing and pin diameter. If over limit, exchange. Fix connecting rod on the vise and remove connecting rod bushing. When assemble, using special tool. Make a line for the connecting rod bushing oil path and connecting rod oil path. Check bearing tension after assemble bearing on the connecting rod cap. Apply proper torque on the connecting rod bearing cap. Check inner diameter for the connecting rod bearing using dial gauge. If over limit, exchange. Assemble connecting rod bearing. When assemble, must check mark on the side is correct. Align the mark, piston intake, connecting rod cap. Assemble snap ring before insert piston pin. Check mark again and assemble piston pin. Insert piston ring and assemble piston pin.
That's good.
Top ring is pressurized ring. Its function is sealing and deliver heat to the liner. Second ring help top ring for the sealing. Also it adjust for the lubricant thickness. Oil ring is for the removing oil and return to oil to the oil sump. Caution, must avoid X and Y axis on the cylinder block when installing piston ring. Install piston oil ring first. Bottom. Must avoid X and Y axis on the cylinder block when installing piston ring. As on the yellow box, rotate the second ring by 120 degrees. As on the yellow box, rotate the top ring by 120 degrees. Piston have print on the top. When assemble, printed area should be on the top. Assemble spring first and assemble oil ring later. Must avoid X and Y axis on the cylinder block when installing piston ring. Assemble second ring with special tool. Must avoid X and Y axis on the cylinder block when installing second ring. Must avoid X and Y axis on the cylinder block when installing top ring. Conduct same procedure for other 5 pistons. Assemble piston chassis on the cylinder block. When assemble, align block number and piston order. Assemble cylinder number 1 first. Fan pulley side is number 1.
That's good.
Assemble cylinder number 6. After piston number 6 assemble is finished, rotate crankshaft so that piston number 2 and number 5 move to the bottom. Assemble cylinder number 2. Assemble cylinder number 5. After piston 2, 5 is assembled, rotate crankshaft for piston 3, 4 assemble. Assemble piston number 3.
That's good.
Assemble piston number 4. Apply torque from the center first. Torque is 12 plus or minus 0.25 kg per meter. Once center torque is done, rotate that crankshaft and apply torque from the top. Assemble engine oil pump. Assemble oil sump. Apply liquid gasket between cylinder block and oil sump. After assemble oil sump gasket, assemble oil sump. Torque is 2.6 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter. Place cylinder on the flat ground and install dowel pin before assemble gasket.
That's good.
Front top gasket side should be face on the top and place it on the dowel pin. Remove valve guide using hammer and valve guide remover. Check gap between head bottom and valve using depth gauge. If over the limits, replace. When exchange the valve, you must exchange the valve guide. If valve contacting surface is abnormal condition, replace valve seat insert. Check free falling length of the spring. If over the limits, replace. Check valve spring angel. If over the limits, replace. Check valve tension using spring tension. If over the limits, replace. Place cylinder head on the cylinder block. Place cylinder head on the dowel pin. Tentative assemble the cylinder head bolt. Bolt for the cylinder head is all different. You must remember the bolt location. Since cylinder head block bolt of tensile force, you must replace with new bolt when overhaul. Assemble the bolt with tentative assemble.
That's good.
Follow the bolt assemble order as in the video. Its torque is 4 kg per meter. Do the marking on the top of the bolt. This marking will become our guide for the tightening the bolt. Tighten the bolt with 90°, follow tighten order.
That's good.
Tighten the bolt with 60°, follow tighten order. Apply gear oil on the push rod end.
That's good.
Assemble rocker arm. It have different shape for the cylinder head block rocker arm. Must check carefully for the hole. Tentative assemble for the rocker arm bolt. Tighten long bolt on the blinking 4 dot in the screen. Torque is 3.1 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter.
That's good.
Adjusting intake, exhaust valve. The cylinder head bolts were previously tightened with the torque wrench. Therefore it is not necessary to retighten the cylinder head bolts before adjusting the valve clearance. After letting the number 1 cylinder's piston come at the compression top dead center by turning the crankshaft, adjust the valve clearances. Loosen the lock nuts of rocker arm adjusting screws and push the feeler gauge of specified value between a rocker arm and a valve stem and adjust the clearance with adjusting screw respectively and then tighten with the lock nut. As for the valve clearance, adjust it when in cool, as follow. Rotate crankshaft so that case mark and fan pulley mark align each other. Rotate the crankshaft to overlap the intake and the exhaust valves of number 6, then number 1 cylinder become the compression state of top dead center. Therefore adjust the valve clearance corresponding to the arrow of upper figure. At this time there are no force on the push rods of number 1 cylinder. As for the valve clearance, adjust it when in cool, as follows.
That's good.
Rotating the crankshaft by 1 revolution, number 6 cylinder become the compression state of top dead center. Valve lock nut torque is 2.6 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter.
That's good.
Thereafter adjust the valve clearances corresponding to the arrow of upper figure. After reinsuring the valve clearances, retighten if necessary. Fuel injection pump install. Overhaul or repair or new FIP install. Before install, please set the engine first. For the FIP install, piston no 1 should be on the top of compression and number 6 should the TDC. Check OT mark matching to inner mark, remove camshaft cover. If camshaft marking is not matching, rotate the crankshaft, it will automatically make piston number 1 as TDC. If camshaft marking is not like as above, piston number 6 is compressed TDC and piston number 1 is overlapped. Must align pump marking and overmarking when install fuel injection pump. Check whether C mark on FIP gear is aligned with gear location. Mark ABC should be aligned together. FIP will be installed on the C mark. Caution, heavy object. Install on the engine. After assemble FIP, assemble timing mark cover. Check injection nozzle before reuse. Must check it condition for the better machine performance. Check nozzle holder, push rod, needle valve surface for any damage or vent. If spring is damaged, replace with new one. Check injection nozzle, needle valve, valve seat, nozzle for not contamination or damage. Torques for the nozzle connector is 5.5 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter. Clean injection nozzle. Install it on the dowel pin location so that the hole become aligned. Retainer ring nut torque is 7 plus or minus 1 kg per meter. Nozzle holder cap nut torque is 4.5 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter. Test spray condition for new or replaced injection nozzle. Test spray using special test kit. Adjust spray with injection nozzle screw on the top. When install injection nozzle, must change dust cover and nozzle gasket. Extra attention for any scratch or damage when installing. Injection nozzle torque is 2.2 plus or minus 0.2 kg per meter. Use torque wrench for the exact torque. Intake manifold torque is 2.6 plus or minus 0.2 kg per meter. Use torque wrench for the exact torque. Please refer to the screen for fuel supply pipe torque. Use torque wrench for the exact torque. Fuel drain pipe torque is 1.3 plus or minus 0.2 kg per meter. If over torque is applied, it will have leakage or control lag. Fuel supply pipe and FIP connection torque is 1.7 kg per meter. Remove plug and install FIP lubricant pipe. Assemble fuel return hose and tighten it with clamp. Assemble engine oil filter. Its torques is 5 kg per meter. Connect boost compressor hose between FIP and intake manifold. Exchange head cover gasket and assemble it with torque wrench. Its torque is 2.2 kg per meter. Install impactor, option. Install fuel filter and hose. Its torque is 4.2 plus or minus 0.8 kg per meter. Install exhaust manifold. Must change its gasket. TOP mark should be on the top. Apply torque with torque wrench. Please follow video for the order torque, 2.9 plus or minus 0.3 kg per meter. Assemble turbocharger. Torque, 5.3 plus or minus 1.0 kg per meter. Assemble engine oil dipstick gauge. Assemble turbocharger. Torque E, 5.3 plus or minus 1.0 kg per meter. Assemble turbocharge lubricant supply pipe. Assemble turbocharge lubricant supply pipe. Change gasket. Torque, 3.8 plus or minus 0.7 kg per meter. Assemble start motor. Torque, 8.4 kg per meter. Assemble water pump. Apply liquid gasket on the new gasket. Test thermostat before assemble. If fault, replace. Install thermostats. Assemble hose. Torque, 2.6 plus or minus 0.5 kg per meter. Assemble water pump and thermostat hose.